Hello everybody, how you doing? This is Kinesiology 234. Specific to this presentation, we're going to talk about the initial consultation. And as a movement practitioner, I don't care what industry you're going to go into, you're going to have initial consultations. As you've gone through your collegiate life and even high school life, you've had a number of speech classes. Yeah, and those speech classes have always required you to do presentations in front of a group, support arguments, that kind of stuff. But rarely do speech classes put you in a position to be one-on-one, which frankly can be more intense than a 1 on 15 type of environment. So to that end, we're definitely going to practice this in class, but I want to go over a few of the nuances of the initial consultation and what you're actually getting towards in that initial consultation. And when a person comes in and sits down to talk with you, they've committed to making change. And I'll talk about this a little bit later on. But they've made that decision that today is their day. They want to make change, and they seek out somebody like you to guide them along that path. And many of the people that you're going to work with are very successful. They're vice president people, they're heads of companies, they make a nice living, they have the expendable income to pay for your services, and realize they're seeking out expert level service, much like the person might be the head of accounting at Aon downtown, and they have a very high expertise in that industry. They're seeking you out as an equal in that expertise in the fitness industry because it's quite frankly something that they just don't have the answers to. Otherwise, they wouldn't be sitting across the table from you. So it goes beyond just finding out what their goals are. There's more to just that initial consultation. And the personal training environment itself, and I'm going to loosely kind of go back and forth and probably just use movement practitioner more often than not. But when you look at this, there's a high degree of relationship building skills that has to happen. Your client and your patients are entrusting themselves, their physical being, their well-being to you. They have this very nebulous kind of picture that they want to achieve a fitness goal somewhere down the road and they have no idea how to do it. They are seeking you out as the expert. And as a result, you have to be able to definitely negotiate being able to introduce content, be able to motivate that person, and be also be able to hold them accountable to their own actions. There's a little bit of behavior modification in here as well. And you got to realize that many times, the relationship building process begins long before you sit down at the table. You're in the gym, you're working out with somebody, it's how you interacted with the person because they're on a lat pull down and you want to get on a lat pull down. You were very professional and approachable in an interaction on the floor. Those are the kind of things that start building the relationships very early on and start building your own brand equity. And I can't stress this enough. You have to be aware of your own brand in the environment. I'll talk more about this later on, but in essence, you're the Big Mac in the McDonald's. You're co-branding yourself in a wellness fitness center. And you're going to have your own persona, your own personality, and people are going to gravitate towards you as a result of that. So it's how you are perceived by people and how you interact with those individuals that really sets the tone. And part of that is just how you present yourself. If you show up, do you look professional? Is your shirt tucked in? Do you look like an unmade bed? Those are very important things to individuals. And then also maybe your first contact with an individual, whether it's on the fitness floor, via text, via phone call, it has to be purposeful and professional. And I'll talk a lot about that in this class. So the initial consultation has a couple different caveats to it, right? And the first is to determine if the person can even work out. Do they have the basic physical requirements to allow them to participate in an exercise program? Do they have clearance from a doctor? Have they completed a health history questionnaire? Have they completed a Park U health history questionnaire? Those are components of the health history questionnaire that allow you to gain some insight. They also allow you to gain some talking points, but they also allow you to determine if the participant in front of you can go ahead and start an exercise program. And then it becomes, you have these tools from these documents and from your conversation that allow you to help formulate the goals and the benchmarks that will keep your person on track. It's easy for them to kind of get lost in the process. Believe me, nobody trains forever. You rarely have a client that'll train with you for like 10 years. I have people like that, but it's rare. And you have to be able to present the value proposition and provide value within the context of X amount of weeks, X amount of sessions, and how it's going to look during that time. And now with you sitting down with somebody face to face, it becomes more apparent of your ability to build that relationship with them and interact with them, because now you're starting the process of taking them by the hand, taking their very nebulous goal and starting to provide focus to it through some very, very deft conversation skills. So we often talk about this in synastry. What is your why? What brought you in? Now, you normally wouldn't ask the person, hey, what's your why? But through the course of conversation, through open-ended questions, closed-end questions, using those skillfully, being able to ask the right questions at the right time, you can walk a person down a path to find out more about why they are there. Many times it's the component of, hey, I want to be able to run up and down a soccer field with my kids, or it is, I want to fit into a wedding dress in May. But many times there's a psychological or emotional driver that will be the thing that's actually the lever you have to hit on to be able to motivate them. And I can tell you that I've dealt with people who are in a medical-based environment who did have psychological and emotional trauma, and it caused eating disorders. And wow, talk about a very powerful, powerful connection in that type of environment. These people were driven by demons from their childhood. It was amazing to see these individuals and hear some of their struggles. And I'll talk more about that in the class. And really, what you're doing now is starting to provide context. Here are our goals. Here's how we're going to go ahead and motivate you towards these goals. And here's how I, as a professional, am going to do that. So when you're at the table, you have to realize these things. The person that's sitting there is saying, I'm in a fitness center. I don't know what I'm doing. Everybody else does. I'm scared out of my mind, and I need to make change. Today is my day. Something drove them in there to do that, and you have to figure that out. And they want to make a physiological change, right? So they want to change their physique and their bodies, but they also have to be driven to understand that to do that, there's a behavioral change. Great, you're going to work out with me twice a week. What are you going to do with the other, 5 days during the week? You have to be able to make behavioral changes and make good lifestyle changes. And that is where you, the expert, comes into play. There's always some kind of emotional component tied to this. And it's the emotional component that drives the behavioral, which drives the physiological. So there's kind of a triad between those three. You can't underestimate those three. It's not just you having somebody throw some weights around. There's another driver in there that you have to be very well aware of. So your role also is to help provide that focus, as I mentioned earlier. Their expert authority that you bring to the table, there is this ability for you to take this nebulous idea of what they want to do and really help them bring focus to that. And your goal should be able to have them be able to bring focus to that, and it drives them for a behavioral change and a behavioral modification that gives them a physiological change. Usually there's a first phone call. Hey, this is Adrian. I'm calling you from XYZ Gym. I was referred to you by my training manager. You said you're interested in personal training, which is great because I'm a personal trainer. I'd love to work with you. Let's go ahead and set up a day and a time where we can sit down and meet and kind of go over some stuff. And that's a real easy voicemail to leave. Another one, when you get them on the phone, it's the same line of conversation, but instead of leaving, day and time, it becomes, do you want to go over a few things now and start the process? Because you want to start the relationship building process as early as you can. The sooner you can start that with your client, the sooner you build a relationship that is not just your client coming to you, but it's the two of you working together to help with their goals. And you set the expectation of completing a health history questionnaire, also Part Q. There might be some other physiological tests that you might do, and you kind of dig in a little bit more about what they're trying to do, and you start to explain to them that there is a cost with this. There is a value, and I think many young trainers miss this. They don't lay out that there's a value proposition to what they're providing. So really, you're trying to put this on the correct course early on, and hold these people accountable. and not just have it be like a novelty, like, oh, here's, 80 bucks for the hour. Thank you so much. I appreciate coming in. And not just be an X on a schedule, although that is a benefit to some people. You want to have them really understand that there's a value to them showing up, and it's a value that extends just beyond the 1 hour of you two working together that goes into and spills over into the remainder of the week. So, you have to be able to skillfully use these open and closed end questions. And Part S will talk more about this, and we'll practice this in class, and be able to understand that you have two ears and one mouth. Let the person talk and let them talk about why they are there. And then it becomes much easier once they start to hear themselves that they can actually visualize their goals and make them more tangible. Usually with a trainer, there's a couple different conflicts, right? One is like the time, whether you're a morning person or a night person. The other is with, if they want male or female, or if there's a specific discipline they want to work in. Those are usually quickly resolved early on, and you can ask those questions pretty early on and determine if it's going to work or not. So when you meet the person, it's usually kind of like a meet and greet, kind of like a consultation, show and tell many times, because they want to get on the fitness floor and get a little bit of a workout. And then you are introducing them in a very comfortable environment because you're lugging them around the gym and leading them around, and you're showing them how to use the equipment, how to be involved on the floor and not be like the person everybody is staring at. So I oftentimes, when I go through this process, I undershoot the workouts in the beginning very much. I mean, it's more about show and tell and just getting a couple pounds of load on the person so they can get a feel for what they're doing. It is not about beating them into a gang. That is not what this is, and beating the crap out of them. It is about introducing them into the lifestyle of wellness and introducing them into how they can integrate this in a very smart manner. I often set the expectation, hey, you're going to be sore no matter what we do. So we're just going to go through the educational curve right now. And after a couple of weeks, the weights are going to go up. You're going to get stronger. You're going to notice your ability to work harder. And then after 4 weeks, other people are going to start to notice that, hey, you've made some changes in your life. And then 12 weeks, you'll be on the beach feeling pretty good. And from there, I usually jump into the pricing component because that is important. And my usual conversation is, the facility sets the pricing for the session, and usually the more you buy, the more you save. It's typically about 70, 80 bucks session. So you have to understand that there's a value proposition here, John, where if you're not engaged in the process, you're basically just throwing away 80 bucks every time you come in. I need you engaged in the process and plugged into this so you can actually get more yield out of this process. And this holds true, guys. If your value proposition is always greater than the money the person spends, you will always have clients, always. And so I urge you to really understand that at $1 a minute or better, please do not do a no call, no show. You're going to be charged either way. The time is valuable for you. As time is valuable for me. I just don't show up and train you. I actually have a plan in my head of what I'd like to do. And so to that end, we're in this together, and I ask you to work with me together. And there will be times you're going to call and cancel, like, hey, it's snowy, it's crappy, I can't make it. And, I'm going to just say 2 words back to you. And I've done this. And I'm just sent back a text message that reads wedding dress, and that client came in. And that's part of our arrangement. And that's part of the accountability that person is paying for me. And I set that very early on in our relationship, so they know that I'm going to hold them accountable in that manner. So we're very much a service-based business. Excuse me. And it's with a short reoccurring sales cycle. And by that, I mean, if your client is not happy with you and they're not happy with your service, they're not going to come back. So you have to build the relationships. You have to provide value. You have to be able to continually provide value and show results for your clients. And the big thing is you have to be there. You have to be on time. You have to be in the moment. You have to work with your client. And you have to be engaged in the process. So that's all about building the relationship. You're providing value to your clients, and I guarantee you're going to retain clients. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off on this presentation. Have a good one. Bye.